So the topic tonight is your favorite deck and mine. So
Yeah.
I'll start it off with a story. Aaron Dix. I don't know if I ever told you this, but the first game I ever played of pre-modern was with your Easter Championships winning deck. So I never knew anything except for having Urza's baubles in front of me. Although at the time there was Volcanic Hammer. And I
Yeah.
think you know him. My friend Patrick O'Halloran Gannon was across the
Mhm.
table from me playing a Goblin Patrol version, and I kicked the crap out of him. So we quickly figured out which version of Mono Red had supremacy. And I'd like to talk about that with you today. Like it same deck almost, right? Like two cards
Oh
off of the
yeah.
main deck.
Yeah, I think pretty much for the most part, the decks that you see from the people that from the people that really know the deck at this point, and the people putting up results with it, tends to be pretty similar.
Yeah, so the first deck I ever played was a four bauble deck, one volcanic hammer, 19 lands, and yeah, it's like the rest of it is just the same as the deck I'm playing now. I guess like volcanic hammer. You transformed volcanic hammer into lava dart at some point. I didn't even do that.
Yeah, that was walking to LobsterCon the year that you beat me in the top eight. That
so
was like the morning of deciding, no, I want to absolutely win the mirror and crush elves. And I won the mirror and crushed elves throughout the day.
so I also want to win the mirror, and also beat Lanny. So the
Yeah.
that one lava dart, as we all know, was instrumental in my Swiss defeat of Lanny
Oh my
and
gosh.
the PSS this year. Um, although that stupid storm deck got me back. I foolishly played the rock. I mean, that's
Yeah,
my own. It's my own fault.
there you
Like
go.
I could have played Mog Fanatic. I foolishly played the
Tried
rock.
tried to fit it in.
No,
Tried to get the rock deck in there and
but
punished.
all I did was I just took out the fourth Urza's Bauble. People don't know this, but I have four signed Olerade Urza's Baubles, but one of them's white bordered, so I took
Yeah.
it out for a land.
We figured that out in the PSS. I realized why you're only playing three baubles.
Yeah, well,
As we were doing commentary for that round. It occurred to me. It's like, okay, now it all makes sense.
but
It all came together.
the fourth white Urza's Bauble is in my meme deck.
Yep.
So I have a same 75, but all new printing cards where possible, right? There's no new printing
Yeah.
of Overload. But my pride and joy of that is I have Brian Hacker gold
First
bordered curse
scrolls. Yeah.
scrolls signed by Brian Hacker. Like that's so that's a lot. So
That's
tell me
sweet.
about the deck, man. How does this deck work?
Uh well, I think that it works differently depending on what you're playing, when you're playing, what's the board state like. I think it's really super reactive. It's why I started valuing instant so highly in it, because I like to have all the information before I choose anything.
I I think that that's a subtle thing about the bobble version of the deck. So like you said, like a lot of the people putting up results are basically playing what amounts to, within one or two cards of your Easter Championship deck from 3 years ago. But um that I didn't understand until I was actually friends with you, was that the the instants make so much sense because you're a bauble deck. So like if you rip a bauble
Mm-hmm.
and then like you're in top deck mode and you use the bauble, like you might draw an instant and kill your opponent. And so like having more instants instead of like Seal of Fire, which is an like Seal of Fire is an excellent card,
Really great.
right?
Yeah.
It is arguably better than Shock. It is arguably in fact better than Incinerate, right? But it is not an instant, right?
Right.
So um that's like a subtle thing about, if you were, Patrick Chapin used to always say people don't understand the technology that they use. So they don't understand the
Mm-hmm.
technology that's in front of them. So they're like, oh, Bobble's there to thin the deck. Well, Bobble's there to thin the deck. Bobble's there to feed the Lavamancer, but Bobble's also there to fuel instants. And yeah, just a tiny piece of technology.
Yeah, I feel like it synergizes so well with the instance, but I was so heavy on instance. I valued instant speed over everything. The reason that you see me playing one volcanic hammer as far back as the first bauble list is because I also value card redundancy, and I never wanted to have a dead card in my hand. So that's a card, like people were playing Flame Rift at the time, and I think Flame Rift is unplayable in the deck. But I think that because you don't get any leeway in how you use it. It only goes to the face. It also goes to your face. It's sorcery speed. It doesn't move the needle at all. And at sorcery speed, playing that and letting them have a chance to respond, it just feels awful. And
Oh
so much
man.
can change so fast. So the idea that that was sometimes a dead card in my hand because I wasn't
So
safe
you
playing it.
you tried Flame Rift at one point.
I've tried pretty. I I think I've tried close to every card in playable in this deck at some point. I had played Goblin Patrol at one point. I had, it's all just down to what seems to be working for me right now, and then I test the heck out of it and see why I don't like that card, and switch it up.
I like the deck because if I don't know, it is my favorite deck I've ever played. So when I said like, how does the deck work? And you said, well, it depends, right?
Yeah,
It
everything in
depends.
your hand is versatile. It's you can be a control deck, and then just alpha strike them out at the end of the game. You can be a grindy mid-range deck using your lava mancers to control the board. You can do the super aggro. Well, I just have a handful of 4 bolts, and we're gonna do this the old bolts and fire blast you to death, uh, by turn 4.
Yeah, you're a passable storm combo deck.
Right, exactly.
If you're in the right seat, you're a passable storm combo deck. I it always tickles me, and I think I might be coming back around to your point of view because I was like so like ardently against like having Jackal Pup in my deck against goblins
Mhm.
after sideboarding. You're like, well, if you're on the play, you should have Jackal Pup. I just
Yeah,
keep I just
that's
keep
how you win the game.
I just keep seeing these Yahoos with their Jackal Pups, looking like
So
Greek gods,
yeah,
like
I mean, the earliest tournaments that we played, I was playing against the same players that we all know and love today. Had an absolute battle against Mike Arnold. I remember playing against uh, Jeff White. You know, these great players that were super on the Goblins train early on, and I remember the games were play a Jackal Pup on turn 1, burn blockers, get in for 2, get in for 2, get in for 2, turn the corner and win. So if I get 6 off a Jackal Pup and remove your creatures at the same time, it feels awesome.
man,
That's
6 off a
everything you want.
Jackal Pup. That's like a really good ball lightning. And
Yeah.
and I think of ball lightning as being like that's the card I really want in the goblins matchup, actually. I feel like if I land a
Yeah.
ball lightning, I usually win those games.
Yeah. Well, but then you saw, you know, I was watching the stream and you were commentating on the PSS match where you go for the ball lightning because you probably win if you ball lightning, and we're both going, no, 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 don't do it.
Yeah.
Uh, and sure enough, as soon as he played the third land and thought about it, you and I both thought he's going to go for it. He should just control the board here, get this war chief out of there, and yeah, the next turn, goblins did goblin things. He hadn't gotten rid of the war chief. He got pyrokinesis and punished with that. You know, Mike Harris might be one of the better players in pre-modern, and he just, a momentary, greed trying to get that 6 damage in.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, I feel like I want to hit that ball lightning in that matchup, but it doesn't mean you have to play it on turn 3,
Right.
right? Like
Exactly. And that's a
you
funny thing too, because people always talk about I have to play X number of lands to hit ball lightning on 3. I'm like, who says you have to hit ball lightning on 3?
you're not even favored to have 3 landed turn
Right.
3.
So that's what my whole point was, I'm not gonna make myself flood sometimes to hit 3 mana on turn 3 a, a decent percentage of the time. I don't want it that bad. I'll wait till turn 5 to ball lightning.
You know, I am so wary of flood because the number of times you said to me, "Oh man, I lose all the games that I draw 5," something like that.
Hmm?
I've won so many games hard casting multiple fire blasts at this point that I'm just like, I don't know what Aaron's talking about, right? Like I'm sitting here with like
It's
7 land in play, and I'm
okay.
like, we
Hold
got
on.
it.
Is it the position that you want to be in?
No, of course not.
Okay.
I'm like
Right. Because
cursing their lucky
everything in your
stars the whole
desk,
time.
everything in your deck is a resource, right? You're trying to win with 0 cards in hand. You know, that old, motorsports adage, the perfect car crosses the finish line and explodes. I want I want to cross the finish line and be done. I want to slam the last card on the
No,
table and
no, still had all these.
no, I
That
don't
is
want
the
that.
that is the best analogy I've ever heard. And as you know, I hate analogies, but it's the best analogy I ever heard. I want to cross the finish line and explode.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the deck because I think Lanny was the one who pointed this out to me. Like it is so high skill. Every single card is a split card, right? Like
Yeah.
every card is swords to plowshares
It's
or
creature removal or
yeah,
3 damage, right?
or face burn. And then like
Yeah.
it's all resource like it's so tight on resource management. Like the card Jackal Pup
Mhm.
is terrible. It is
Yeah.
terrible and it is terrifying, right? It's that's what a magic card should be, I feel, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
the fact that we even have these disputes about like, well, should Jackal Pup be in your deck ever? Or should it only be in your deck in sideboarded games on when you're on the play? That's really interesting considering how terrifying the card is sometimes. You
Yeah.
have Jackal Pup out of your deck 100% of the time in sideboarded games against the Rock and Elves, though, right? I always sided in.
Most of the time against the rock. Depends on how many walls I saw. If I don't think they're doing heavy wall, I might try
If
it.
everybody has at least 4 walls, and then,
Yeah, but I'll burn one of them. If they're on 4, if they're only playing blossoms, if they're not playing roots as well, yeah, I'll leave pups in. If I don't think they've got a couple of roots in there.
I think I used to keep Pup in against the Rock, partly because I didn't know any better. But I think it was your match against Christian in PSS 4. Was that the one we were both in?
Yeah.
Where he was the Rock and you just 2-0'd him easily with no Jackal Pups in your deck after sideboarding. And
Yeah, Price of Progress will do that though. It must have been Price of Progress and Sulfuric Vortex just make
yeah,
that.
no. You were just like, and I remember chatting with you, and you're just, and back then, people still thought that The Rock had a favorable matchup against Red. The same people who think that it had a favorable matchup against Red 2 years ago probably still think it has a favorable matchup against
Yeah.
Red. But yeah, I just remember chatting with you, and you're just like, didn't feel close, didn't look close.
Yeah, I that sometimes you just feel like you're in control. That PSS I remember every match feeling close. We had really really good competitors that
You didn't
PSS.
do a lot of losing that one, as I recall.
No, not in the Swiss. That was pretty cut and dry. I was I was the negative for your run. I had my one loss was your one win.
Was Mano?
The same week. So we had like
Oh,
the
I see.
same. I
Oh,
forget.
so you
It
went
must have been
six and
Rich.
one.
I feel like it was probably Rich.
Yeah, Rich really didn't do a lot of losing in that PSS.
I tried to I tried to game Rich because he did not. So here's the thing. Rich is so much better than me that he didn't put a lot of thought into it until the day of what he was going to ban. And I'm like, if he's not putting a lot of thought in it, maybe I could get away with something. And I tried to you can't game Rich Shea. You just can't. So I got punished for thinking I could sneak one past him.
I mean, this is a different beatdown deck, but I think that I've never been beaten so badly as when you beat my astral side with your zombies. Like that was just I had a 6 casting cost wrath and you just had a wasteland.
Hey, zombies is a scary deck in the PSS. Everybody should take notice. That deck is really good
Zombies is the truth.
if you can avoid a couple key matchups. Everybody at the end, Tom beat me by banning zombies. I thought I was going to have zombies for sure, and he banned it.
Oh, I mean, I think they might have to change the PSS rules. I think you got to be crazy to not go goblins and burn as your first two decks. Like me and Iron Lungs both did it. We both made the top four. I went 6-1. Like just playing Mog Fanatic every single week. Um,
Didn't weren't those two of James' decks too?
no, James had goblins, blue black stifle knot,
Oh, that's right. That's right.
inspired
Yeah,
by
yeah.
yourself, and
Yep.
but he did have another Wooded Foothills deck. I should have had another Wooded Foothills deck. He played Red Green Oath as
Red Green Oath.
his
Yeah.
third deck, but yeah, I think Team Wooded Foothills is
Mono Wooded Foothills. Just go
that's
for
got to
it.
be the way to go. Um, but yeah, uh, what do you think is like the best matchups for the red deck? Goblins. You love the goblins matchup.
I don't love the Goblins matchup. I think there's a slight edge to red in the Goblins matchup. I've had pretty good success against Goblins with the red deck. I think you're favored, but it's not open and shut.
I,
Uh,
that's how I feel about the goblin side. Although, if you asked me, I'd say that I win both sides. That's the same thing Lester Smerling said.
yeah,
In the on the coverage is like, well, I think if whichever side I'm on is the winning side because I don't think either one is like so like I don't think it's like 70% goblins or
yeah,
70% red. I think like
yeah.
Mog Fanatic is going to be good to me.
I
And
think you're. Oh, good.
Lanny and I have been testing it recently, and he's slightly ahead playing red with me on goblins.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think he's ahead like 1 or 2 games
Yeah,
in the sets that we've been playing.
yeah. That feels about right. Like just a little bit ahead.
Yeah, it's just
Not
and the
much.
games are close. You know,
Oh yeah, yeah.
what do you?
The ones where Goblins gets the right hand, nothing is stopping Goblins. Like if Goblins gets to do Goblin stuff, they just run over you. You can't do anything about it. If they've got,
You could have your completely non-interactive hand. You just be like first turn bolt, second turn 2 bolts.
yeah, right.
Let's go. Third turn
Third turn,
bolts,
hope
incinerate,
you
fire
played.
blast.
Yeah, hope you played a bunch of non-basics, and I get to pop
Yeah.
you for the win.
Um.
Yeah, I think the best matchups are probably still like the pure control shells, like
Land
Stasis,
still. Oh,
Land Still,
stasis.
uh,
Elves.
Elves. Yeah, Elves is great matchup. Uh, uh, Hermit Feb. You
I was really
basically can't lose there.
shocked at how not a buy
I see
regular
what you did
Feb
there.
was.
What
What?
was
Like
you
how?
shocked? Yeah, that's
Oh,
what you
I
do to
see.
a Hermit. Uh,
Like regular
no,
Feb, I was just like, this is super not a buy, and I was like very very surprised because I thought Hermit Feb was such a good matchup, but
right.
just
Hermit Feb plays so many non-basics, you can just punish him for it. So now you've got a 2 mana finisher, and you have a handful of removal for their creature-based combo stuff.
I
So
I love the land still matchup, but if they
mhm.
want to beat you after sideboarding, they can. That's the thing that we
So
learned.
we just, I I pushed people. Landstill was a really popular deck of the people that were in our playtesting group heading to LobsterCon last year, and it wasn't close. We would do these games where after sideboard, the red deck just runs away with it. Because I get all the time in the world to craft a perfect hand, right? I just get to fill a handful of instants, and you have to tap out to win. If you play a cop red, say, uh, sooner or later you better put some creatures on the board. You
Um,
can't attack with man lands ever. You need your lands are more precious as lands than they are as 2 points of damage to me.
Lanny and I played in a 1K a few months ago where we both played against the same blue white player who um, he's like a Star City Open champion. We both beat him game one. I think we both went to 3 games, but he had like 3 cop red, three warmth plus hydroblast in his sideboard. He had something like 11.
And
Uh,
that's
like
bonkers to me.
I you can't beat 2 warmths in a circle red, and I tried, my friend. I tried.
2 warmth in a circle red. That's
That
insanity.
well, and he has
People,
hydroblast to cover it, right? So
yeah.
even if you were an anarchy guy, right,
So I pushed people to play multiple copies of hate in their sideboard. You have to have the second thing to tutor for. You can have a 2 tutor sideboard, but you have to have a warmth and a cop, or a cop and arcane lab, or a cop and whatever your
you
other
could have a
enchantment is.
cop and your opponent's sulfuric vortex. I beat one of your
That's
crew last year with his sulfuric vortex. It was great.
then they didn't listen to me. That one's even in the post game for the Easter championships, I was talking about, I sideboard out sulfuric vortex every time against anything that has white in it. Like,
Well, the thing that was bad is the matchup that I was talking about, Lanny and I both losing. I had to not only leave in sulfuric vortex but add more because he was a warmth player.
warmth deck, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just like, this sucks. Maybe I'll take some damage from my own vortex and he won't. But I still know how to overload a circle.
Yeah,
But I can't
exactly.
beat him if he's warmth blocking me too. So
So if you're taking all the time, because you have all the time in the world, you have to treat it like you've got all the time, and then you just fill up your hand. If you have a flaring pain in the board, you may or may not have a flaring pain in the board. If you have a flaring pain in the board, then you get to go for the single flaring pain and a pop, and you need to, and then however many hydroblasts or red blasts you can, or pyroblasts or red blasts you can have in your hand, and you're just trying to get those 2 spells through,
so
and you
I
can flashback.
my current sideboard is 4 assorted blasts, 3 overloads, 3 lava darts, 4 pop, and a sulfuric vortex. So I only go up to 3 sulfuric vortex after sideboarding. What is the canonical current Aaron Dick's sideboard?
There's no canonical. I think it's all because the meta is constantly changing in pre-modern. The meta never stays the same. So right now I'm playing a card that I never play, and I've never encouraged people to play it. I'm playing Anarchy right now because the decks that I want to beat that have white enchantments aren't playing counter magic, and they're trying to pillow fort behind these white enchantments. So I just, it's a card that hasn't been good for me previously. I haven't liked it when I've had it in the deck, but right now it seems like it's time to shine.
So what else do you got? You got one anarchy or multiple anarchy?
Right now, because of the meta that I'm playing in, I'm playing 3.
3 anarchy.
Yeah.
Jeez, I'm crow. Your
So
sideboard
we
is
have,
as much casting cost as my entire main deck.
yeah, we have a lot of like Enchantress, Oath Prison, Mono White Prison around these parts. So right now, because of my meta, that's what I'm playing. I'd probably only do 2 if LobsterCon were tomorrow. I'd
Okay,
probably go
wow.
two Anarchy, and then one of those would be a Flaring Pain. Having the one Flaring Pain makes land still a non-issue.
I mean, that also takes out um what was the name of the card that I had against you? Solitary confinement, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, that doesn't
yeah,
target.
that was by far the coldest and smoothest interaction possible at a top 8. Like, play the card, and nobody was really playing it much at the time. And I remember having to stop and read the card while everybody crowded around, and I was like kind of embarrassed that I don't know what this card does. Uh, and everybody's crowding around. And as I'm reading the card, you're telling me, Aaron, I know you're 75. You can't beat this. I'm like, you don't know me.
You're my hero. Like
Oh,
I put in
we're so
my lobster con report. I'm like, I'm an Aaron Dix guy. Like that's my red deck guy. Um, like I told you at the beginning of this cast, like my first deck was your deck. But the
that's
thing
awesome.
was, people were like, "Oh, well, you could beat it with Tormod's Crypt." I'm like, "No, you get Shroud. You can't.
Yeah, I
I
can't
have
target you.
Shroud, right? Like,
That's what I was doing. I'm reading and thinking of my outs, just going like, I have to. I didn't have flaring pain in that either, because you have to like flaring pain plus pop at that point, because pop doesn't target. So, like, I can't attack you. So that plan is out. I can't, the damage is prevented. So I've got to get around the damage prevention. And then I can't target you either. So I can't just flaring pain and throw a handful of bolts at you. So it's got to be pop.
so what do we else we got? We got 3 Anarchy.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm always 3 or more Price of Progress, because when it's the best card in the deck, when it's good, it's the best card in the deck.
so I'm a 4 Price of Progress guy, but for the same
Sure.
reason.
I'm at least 3 at
I,
all times.
Iron Lung sides Price of Progress in against goblins.
Yeah, we talked about this. That was tech that I gave him. Like, you have,
Oh, that's an
they're
Aaron
they're all
Dix technology.
they're all like 10 plus non-basics, and they're a mana hungry deck. They've got to play 2 to 3 non-basics probably to win this.
I'm playing goblins with 4 Ancient Tomb tomorrow. So I'm
Ooh.
crossing my fingers that Aaron Dix doesn't show up at my meetup.
Yeah,
Uh,
really.
because there's no way to side out that I was talking to Lanny. I'm like, do I just like side 4 mountains? Like, and
That's
I'm like, you can't plausibly go into game 2 with all of your ancient tombs in your deck. He's like, I think maybe just side 3 out and then just run 21 lands and hope. Like, he's like, you can't use sideboard space for mountains. Um,
it's pretty brutal. Like, that's if you don't have a deck that's going to attack your life total, you'll be fine.
well, yeah, I think it's like very exciting because I wanted to play Rorik's Bladewing, so I have four four Siege Gang commanders and then 3 Rorik's Bladewing in my sideboard. And also, like, second turn Blood Moon seems exciting. Apparently, I owned 4 Blood Moons, but I bought 2 black bordered ones to the Dark Blood Moons, which apparently, I mean, vanity or whatever, but apparently
Yeah,
I owned 4
there you go.
before this. Um, so I'm very excited for this whole Ancient Tomb angle. I just hope that nobody's Aaron Dix, because if they are, I'm annihilated. But people don't play red deck at the meetups very often. They just play it at the $1,000. But like,
I've I've been on a little bit of a streak playing red deck at our local meetups. I've been playing it a lot lately just because I'm kind of in the mood to play it. Uh, like, sooner or later, people are just gonna absolutely punish me for it.
so all right. So what do we got? We have 3 to 4 pop, 3
Yeah,
anarchy. How many blasts?
3
3 blasts. You have overload.
3 overloads.
So 3, 3, 3, 3, and then do we have pyroclasm,
No,
pyrokinesis,
no, I'm not doing those right now. What's the other thing? Uh,
lava dart?
yeah, 3 lava darts.
Oh, so you're like 3 dart,
Yep.
three anarchy,
Yeah,
three
I'd probably,
blast.
if I were gonna try to take this to a tournament that wasn't my local meta right now, I'd drop the number of anarchies to fit in a flaring pain or a uh, an orb, winter orb.
So either of those is basically an anti-circle card.
Yeah,
So here's my attack. I just don't side any cards against circle because I can beat it. I know how to
right.
beat circle. In part from knowing you. It's circle and something else that
Yes,
gets you.
exactly. So you've got to beat the circle plus something else. That's all.
So, but
And
I
you can
think
try. you can try to just brute force with the like setup again because you have all the time in the world. You can try to brute force an anarchy with hydroblast backup or pyroblast backup. I'm sorry.
Yeah. What is something about the deck that people don't know that you feel like they should know?
Whoever draws first blood in the mirror usually loses.
Whoa, interesting. I
I
hadn't
mean,
thought
the
about it
mirror
that
comes
way.
down to like two things. If, or I guess three things. If you can land a successful ball lightning, you almost always win.
Yeah.
If you can, so there's a sequence where you go first turn creature, they burn it on their turn. Second turn, you play two creatures. They have to, if they feel like they have to answer both, then you can ball lightning them on turn 3.
So this is where you and I have had a fork in the road. So you
Mhm.
like going first in the mirror because it
Yeah,
increases your likelihood of landing ball lightning. I like
right.
going second in the mirror because I like having an extra card for reactive purposes.
I always feel like I'm playing one turn behind. It was funny.
You are. You're literally playing one turn
Yeah,
behind.
I don't like that. I would rather just have more time to play my cards to the board, potential, make them react because they're going to have to react at sorcery speed to a lot of your threats. And I feel like if you're always on the defensive, I I'm going to be able to sneak one past the goalie at some point.
Yeah, well, so in the mirror, landing ball lightning is a big deal. That's like two or
Yeah.
three cards worth of cards in one.
Yep.
And
Whoever has curse scroll active the longest usually
good advantage.
good advantage.
But nobody beats the guy who just draws a bunch of fire blasts.
Right.
That's the thing. Like
Well,
all your strategies go out the window when we're in a multiple fire blast game.
yeah. I mean, alpha strike hands happen, right? Like that's like sometimes the dealer just has you. But
Oh, that's what I'm going for at LobsterCon this year. Me and the
yeah,
dealer like this.
but
I think this is my year. I think I'm gonna play the red deck. I wanted to play it my first year, but then I don't know what possessed me to play that replenish deck, but obviously I did pretty well,
did
you
all
know.
right. Yeah.
So,
Had
but
a real run.
yeah, so but I was
I don't
just
know what
dead.
convinced you to play land still.
Okay, I was dead set on red deck the first year. Then we discovered slide and
Yeah.
whatever rifter, and I was like, oh man, this deck is too good. It beats Aaron's deck and it beats elves, right? So then I could never beat any big spell deck. So then I was like, rather than going back to the red deck, I was just like, what is a big spell deck that I could use to defeat all the rifter decks that are going to show up?
Yeah.
That that
I
was my
don't think
calculus.
how many Rifter decks did you see?
None, no,
None. Yeah.
none.
Right.
I'm the only person who was on the Rifter train. So there's that, and then last year, I don't know. I want to meet up with Lance still, so I played it.
We did so much testing for land still going into that.
I did
We
so
we
much testing
played
last year
so
too.
many games, and I just felt like I had this commanding lead in that matchup. And then I brought that deck like I'm ready to go. That year I had the like double flaring pain sideboard. I'm like I am all in on
Never
beating.
losing to these idiots.
I'm never losing. Yeah, exactly. And then I couldn't. I never saw one. I'm just like this is such a.
I
I
played 3 land still mirrors and had multiple
I know I was
unintentional
sitting right next
draws.
to you multiple rounds in a row. I'm like this is terrible. I'm not getting the matches I want. I want to be playing the mirror. I want to be playing land still. I want to be playing elves. And then I was like sitting at one table and it was like the mono red table. Everybody at the table was all mono red and like one elf player. I'm like, that's a bad place to be.
Dude, he was the barbecue.
Yeah, Raymond. He was in a bad spot.
So I don't. Did you follow contemporary Magic at all?
Uh I dabble with arena every once in a while, but not really. And I
So,
watched the Pro Tour was here.
Sylvan Safekeeper has just been released in contemporary Magic for the first time in since I don't know how long ago when Ola made the card, but
Yeah.
it immediately won the Pro Tour. So
Nice.
it's just like it's just a card that like
Well,
pre-modern
welcome back to
players
the
have
Pro
just been
Tour.
but like it's that card is like quietly so good. It's like
Yeah.
in Flint's deck, the Hermit Druid deck. It's like randomly
So
just
good
in
there.
Terravor, right? Like the Terrageddon decks, you
Yeah.
can just like block your lackey with it, and they're like it does a bunch of things. But yeah, immediately won the Pro Tour.
Sweet.
How do you feel about Sylvan Safekeeper when you're the red player?
Uh, I mean, I guess I don't want to see it because it's making me prioritize throwing additional things. But if they're sacking lands and putting themselves further behind, I just feel like I'm going to get there with creatures. So I'm all right with it.
I'm just gonna like just run my Jackal Pup at them, see what happens.
Right? Yeah.
Like,
Take two, and then I'm going to try to shock it. Sack a land. Fine. I'll shock it again.
man, your current
Sack another land.
your current sideboard is just blowing my mind.
Again, I think the sideboard should always be in flux. I think there are certain things that you can't touch. I think that three or more pops is a must.
But you don't have any more Vortex. That's the thing.
No, I don't right now.
You taught me in a way you probably didn't realize that you taught me that I need to have lots of Vortex and Pop, and it was
Yeah,
because you lost to Tom in the finals of that monthly.
yeah,
And
because I had like no hate for the Rock right then because nobody was playing the Rock.
yeah, I was just like, this is the matchup Aaron wants, except for he took out all the
What
cards that win the
I had like a
matchup.
really I had like I'm always experimenting with the deck though, so I had like a really
No,
experimental sideboard, and it just happened to be when I made a run.
don't get me wrong. Obviously, like Tom's a great player and he's our friend, and like you made a great run. You were in the finals.
Yeah.
I was just like, I'm going to show the world, and by I mean Aaron's going to show the world that the red deck's going to raffle stomp the stupid rock. But I was
What?
just like, oh no, he took all the cards out that make you win the matchup.
Well, yeah, and you I think that I just kind of didn't draw the gas either. So sometimes you just don't draw gas. I had a tournament that I went to in Milwaukee. I had just gotten done, beating a really phenomenal player, Sam Black. I had just beaten him, and then I went on to like the feature match against a person I'd never met before on the Rock. That was like sleeving it up for their first or second pre-modern tournament. I just got raffle stomped by blastoderms. It's like sometimes the Rock just like if I don't draw anything, it's gonna not go in my favor. It
It's like
just happens.
prehistoric rock, like
Oh
the
man,
actual dinosaurs.
yeah. Blastoderm, Birds of Paradise, and I just like,
Uh,
yep. I
there's
guess I might just lose this.
uh last meetup I went to, I lost to a commander player. It was his first pre-modern event. This not feel good.
Yeah.
Well, he was on red,
Uh,
so he deserved the
yeah.
win because he was on red, but he did not play very well. And I was just like, he doesn't understand the matchup. He's just
Yeah.
demolishing me.
I think at those tournaments, you have to fight through in uh, in Wisconsin. Crazy, ridiculous players in Wisconsin. A room full of killers, right?
Did you
And I
play in the
think
one this past weekend?
no, I didn't get to make it to that one. I'm prepping for a big road trip, so I didn't get to make it to that one. But like the losses that I had at that last Milwaukee tournament, it was like to people who are brand new to the scene, like first or second pre-modern tournament. Like I found out halfway through a match. I'm like, I'm pretty sure you're playing my deck. Like, uh, you know,
I mean, every time you see
made
an
a good
Urza's
friend along the
bauble,
way.
you
I'm like,
gotta.
yeah, you're probably pretty close, but he's like, yeah, I just copied some deck online. I'm like, I think I know which one you copied.
Yeah, like
As soon as he cast the main deck Dart, I'm like, I think I know which one this is.
like every time you see a nurse's bauble, like you just have to.
I
It's
get all
like your
happy, yeah.
child.
Yeah, I made a bunch of jokes about it when like it started to catch on. You know, anytime that I saw a list with Urza's Bobble, I would like put some silly binocular meme in there, like
But
"Do you see what I see?" kind of a thing.
that became like the standard when you won the Easter Championship, right? That was the
I
first time
don't
you had
think
unveiled it.
I really don't think it became a standard until very recently. The
Really?
Easter Championship was
It's like 2, 3 years
when I
ago.
played them the first time.
But
Yeah,
well, maybe my perspective is off because that was my first deck, right? So I just I
yeah,
I got into pre-modern because I was just clearing out my collection and BK and Mano were like, "Oh, there's this thing called the North American Pre-Modern Championships. You should go."
yeah.
And I'm like, "Okay, well, I guess I should practice this format then, if I'm gonna go." Um, and so I just like Googled pre-modern deck lists or whatever, and yours was the first one that I saw. And
That's
I'm like,
sweet.
I'm then obviously I was in love with the format, right? Like, can you
Yeah,
imagine like your
there's a
first
viable red deck.
experience is your deck, right?
Oh,
Like,
that'd be sweet because my first experience was the untuned version of my deck, and I think I've shared that in the chat, like the the super untuned, no fetches, main deck, Final Fortune, like just like yeah, we're just gonna try this and see how it goes, kind of a deal. When I first learned about the pre-modern rule set, I'm like, yeah, I was going to a team trios tournament that was playing like a middle school head. I'm like, I'll play the middle school leg of this, and somebody else was playing old school, and another of my friends was playing vintage. So I'm like, yeah, I'll just burn a bunch of face.
did you do great with that, even though it was untuned because
It was
you're
pretty good,
you and
yeah.
it's red? Yeah.
Well, I
Like
ended up going up against a like a tuned version in the mirror, but he didn't like ball lightning. It was like a whole thing.
that's
Uh,
that's weird. Like the first time I think Will won one of the Misties with a red deck, but had no ball lightning. He had browbeat instead. And I was
yeah,
just like, what is this?
yeah, that I and he had like Death Spark in that one.
Yeah, that was
That was a weird
but he
list.
won, right?
But I didn't get a chance to play him. I'm like, man, if I get to play this guy.
Well, is browbeat a bad card? People are always
Okay,
just like they you never get the side you want, but they're either
so
taking 5 or
I
I'm
don't
drawing 3.
I don't care about that. I care that it's sorcery speed. If that were an instant, I'd play 4 immediately.
Interesting. But it's like his ball lightning though.
It was in that one. And I don't hate it as a substitute for ball lightning if you're playing like not mono red deck.
I
If you're
guess
I think there's a version of this deck that's a red green deck that has a green splash that can play browbeat off of the 2/1 insect familiar.
Thornscape Battle Mage,
No, the Thornscape
Apprentice,
familiar. The familiar.
familiar.
It's a 2/1 for a
Oh
green
yeah,
and
of
a
course,
colorless.
familiar. Apprentice
Yeah,
is the 1/1 and Battle
yeah,
Mage is the 2/2.
yep,
He's the 2/1. Yeah.
yeah. I think it's just a cool beatdown card, and it is a ruby medallion. So,
And you could just play third turn Flame Tongue Kavu in this deck.
yep.
Flame Tongue Kavu have you played that in the red deck at all?
This is very much the Jund list that I brought to PSS 2.
Have you played Flame Tongue Kavu at all?
Yeah.
In the red deck?
No. No, in that Jund list I played Flame Tongue Kavu.
I feel like Flame Tongue Kavu might be great.
Because it
I
was
think
like Flame Tongue Kavu plus the worm that bounces creatures to your hand, and Shivan Worm, and like
This deck sounds great. Is it?
And
Do you have like
and the
birds?
Thorscape Familiar to do it. Yeah, the birds.
Do you have fires?
The, yeah, it was a fires deck. So the idea was like I worked backwards from an old fires list, and I'm like, this deck used to be really fast. It's not fast anymore. This is a mid-range deck now. How do I make a mid-range red-green deck work? Well, I splash black in it, and then it starts to look an awful lot like the rock. Well, I guess we're like a rock fires deck. So
Is Shivan Worm better than Spirit Monger?
it was that. Yeah, it was really good. It was really, really good.
I guess when you're
Shivan
bouncing
Worm was always what I wanted to draw.
now, it's just like,
I was bouncing comes into play effects and like playing them again.
what if you're just like 4 Thornscape Battle Mage, 4 Flame Tongue
I
Kavu?
think I was playing. Was I playing? I might have been playing Blastoderm too. So you bounce the Blastoderm and put new counters on it.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, this deck sounds like it has 1,004 casting costs and 5 casting costs.
Oh my
So
gosh, it's awful. Don't
you can't
don't actually do it.
you can't actually like.
It
What if
was
your
it was
opponent plays like a Sapphire Medallion? You're like 100% dead.
pretty
Like,
much like don't like you've got you just hope to make them discard whatever you want to make them discard. That's it. That's your out. Disenchant Sapphire Medallion, or hit it with the monkey and then bounce the monkey with a Shivan Worm.
oh yeah, I'm sure that's gonna be plenty
It works
fast
all
enough
the time. Don't worry
against
about
like
it.
intuition, AK, and meditate. Be like, oh, interesting. You spent
Yeah,
how much
no.
mana?
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, I don't think that deck had legs. It was probably my worst deck that I brought to that PSS too. So
Oh man, but it sounds so exciting to me. I mean, this is just like every conversation I've ever had with
that deck
Landy about
almost lost to Solfatara Springs. Okay.
Solfatara Springs.
Yeah, Mano's like you don't get to play lands this turn deck. You don't get to play lands this turn either. You don't get to play lands this turn either. That's the deck.
So he like Solfataras you and you have to discard.
Yeah, he's got the Anvil of Bogarden too. So you just you can't ever play anything. It's just brutal. You never get your second land in play. You just like
Who won that
nip
PSS?
you.
Did they have real decks?
I did that. I won that one.
Oh, you won that one.
Yeah. I had two good decks and then that fires deck that was
What were your other
trash.
good? What were your other two decks?
Slivers, and I had a blue black Forbidian list that was based off of John's old Forbidian list. So I like this card isn't good enough for pre-modern, but you have to play Shadow Mage in it. So you just so now we're going blue black, and now instead of the Wyvern, I can play Morphling. So we're gonna do Morphling instead of Silver Wyvern. We're gonna do instead of Manowar. I think I had oh, what's the horror black colorless for the horror that removes a card from your hand?
Or removes a card from your hand?
Yeah, it's like shoot, why can't I think of it? It's a pre-modern staple. Black and colorless for a 1/1. Take a card out of your hand, tuck it
Oh,
under.
Mesmeric Fiend.
Yeah, I had Mesmeric Fiend instead of the Mana Wars. Like I just like tried to come up with like an ultimate disruptive deck. I had Wastelands in it, and I predicted that people were going to play like really greedy mana bases and really greedy combo decks. I'm like, I'm going to have discard and counter magic. I'm going to have two decks with discard. I'm going to have two decks with counter magic. And nobody's ever going to be able to play their combo decks against me.
Yeah, but I love the concept of your fires deck more than
Yeah.
either of
Counter Slivers was
these
actually like
decks.
a real deck. I think Counter Slivers is actually good.
Is that a but that's not a deck anybody plays in non-spice pre-modern.
Right.
Is
But
it
I
because
think
of
it
the
I think you
you
could.
think it could? The mana
Yeah,
seems
I think
real difficult.
it wasn't that bad really. Because you do 3 color.
So would you
You're doing
Esper?
No, you're Bant.
Okay, so muscle sliver, crystalline
Yep.
sliver.
Yep. Muscle sliver, crystalline sliver, quick sliver, winged sliver. The quick sliver was actually a really good addition because I could play at instant speed and hold up counter magic. So I had worldly tutors to get the sliver that I was missing at instant speed. Then I would drop a quick sliver at the end of their turn, and now I can just dump muscle slivers or shield slivers for combat tricks.
Did you have
And
worship?
I think I had worship in the board.
Yeah, because I
Crystalline, yeah,
in the spice tournament that we had here, a spice 1K a few months ago, I
yeah,
just I had worship in my blue green threshold deck. I splashed for one white card. It was worship in my sideboard, and I just
yeah.
won a bunch of matchups by just like
Because
intuitioning for worship.
sometimes you just get it. Yeah,
We're like, can
yeah,
you kill
and
my
the
nimble mongoose? He's
no,
1/1.
that was the thing. And I also had meddling mage in that deck, so meddling mage is real good. Turns out,
I bet your red deck would be very good against this deck.
no, it'd be terrible. That deck would roast me. Are you kidding me? I don't want
Why?
to play that deck because crystal and silver.
Yeah, but like price of progress.
Yeah, but counter magic. Like they have counter magic. That's like they have counter magic. Great sideboard cards. I think I whatever.
I think we
I'm probably
should set up a
overthinking it.
challenge at LobsterCon.
All right,
We'll play. It's going to be called the
I'll
Aaron
bring
Dix
both.
Challenge. Your crystalline
I feel
sliver
like we
deck
have
you
a
won the
bunch of
PSS
these that
with.
we've talked about a bunch of these matches that we're gonna do at LobsterCon. Lanny and I have was it Dick's Burn versus Lanny Burn that we're gonna do.
Lanny Brent's going to get destroyed.
Yeah, I know.
Kidding? Like, no,
Uh we've got
I love
there's
Lanny. Don't get
there's
me
like a
wrong.
goblin thing.
This is no
I
chance.
I so we've talked about this. He just he's he he's going about this deck differently than I do, and I think I'm right. And that sounds cocky to say. I feel like Lanny's one
Of,
of the
of,
smartest guys we know,
no, of
but
course you think you're right. Like when people disagree about something, they think they're right. Right?
yeah,
Like, I don't think it's like. I mean, for me, I I played Lanny Burn in a 1K. So Lanny and I played same 75s. I was really excited to do it. And I lost the mirror because I drew more of the bad cards. And the
I
problem
I
with Lanny
can't
Burn
have
is
bad cards in my hand.
you can't get all the bad cards out, right?
Yeah,
Because you have pups and you have four sulfuric vortex. It's just too many for the sideboard. And I'm just like siding in all these overloads. I just have like overloads and they don't have a curse scroll, you know? It
yeah.
was um
I mean,
but
I do wind up with a bunch of curse scrolls in still because I like to take out vortex completely in the mirror.
no, I agree. I'm just saying
Uh,
like I had overload. He didn't have curse scroll. That's what I'm saying, right?
ooh,
Like,
ouch.
but what else am I
Yeah,
going to do? Like leaving the terrible cards. At least overload has
yeah.
text.
Yeah, I remember when you and I were going back and forth about what you should play, and I was like, I think Overload is better, but I'll try Mog Salvage. We'll make a go of it. I go to a local thing, and my good friend John Cheetah is there, who's still I always say this, he's the best player in Minnesota, and it's probably not close. Uh, but for some reason, he and I have this thing. Like I say, I never lose the burn mirror. I'm undefeated against John on the burn mirror for whatever reason, and we just did it again the other night.
Because
He
Mog
he won
Salvage
game
carried the
one.
day.
No, it was awful. Both of us sat there. That was the thing. Both of us sat there, and we had both done it because we were both testing out the same tech at the same time, unbeknownst to the other. And like both
In
of us were just getting angry at our hands,
in my
just mad that we had to
defense,
play it.
at the time I was advocating for Mog Salvage, the only artifact that mattered was Phyrexian Dreadnought, right? And I
The curse
also
scroll.
I lost a match because I had overload instead of Mog Salvage. So I was like very
Yeah,
to
the recency bias built up.
yeah, to Harris. I mean, I ended up winning that 1K, but
Yeah.
I lost a match because it was and that's how I was just like Mog Salvage, and then Jared Doucette played a 4 Mog Salvage version and won his 1K the same weekend. So
Yeah.
so I think I was right, but it stopped being right pretty quick.
Stopped being right.
Like,
Yeah.
like you said, the format's always changing.
Exactly.
I didn't have three
I've
Anarchy in my sideboard.
Yeah, I almost never have Anarchy in my sideboard. This is a really weird time. Like I really just want to stop these people that think they're gonna roll to victory on the back of one solitary confinement because they know I don't have anything in my sideboard to deal with it. Mike.
I mean, I'm playing against Cam in this same 1K.
Yeah.
And it's my worst matchup. He's on Enchantress. He beats me in game one. I go to the boards and I'm just like, I have literal no cards in my sideboard for this matchup. It's my worst matchup, and I cannot improve.
Yeah. It's
Let's
rough.
go. That was a 2-0 for him.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the Anarchy is right for right now, but I have never felt like I wanted especially in the main deck, cards that might not have text. I like I said, I win most often using up the last of my resources.
I mean,
Uh
exploding car.
yeah, exactly. So like there were a lot of times where I had I had that flex slot that was sometimes it was a volcanic hammer because volcanic hammer is always live. Sometimes it was a price of progress depending what the meta looked like.
Oh, I think I
So like
might
a main
love
deck price of
this.
progress. Sometimes it was a lava dart, and then sometimes it was a final fortune. And on the way to LobsterCon, when I switched to dart, like literally walking into the building, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? What am I gonna play? I'm like, no, I got it. I'm doing this. And I had all the deck pictures with all of the different versions. I just
Oh,
I submitted that one.
that's amazing. Um,
Yeah,
I
as we were walking around the streets of Cambridge.
the last 2 years, the red deck was the most popular deck both years at LobsterCon. So I think Lava Dart
Yeah.
is a good choice for that.
Yeah,
Such a big game.
and at the time, like elves was running rampant. I was expecting to just play red and elves.
Elves is just not popular anymore.
Yeah.
I
And
think it's still a good deck, personally.
I think that part of the reason that it wasn't popular was it had 2 tier 1 decks that had its number, and now it's back to 1. So
It,
like
elves?
Parfai's gone. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Parfait
goblins is
was
so good against
oh
elves.
true, yeah. I mean, it's not as like overwhelming as some of the other ones. Like Burn is just it feels awful to be in
I
that seat.
If I'm elves, I would rather play against Burn than goblins.
Are you serious? It's
I
that bad?
never win. I lost a test game against LAN where I had hasted Phantom Deshoba into Verdant Force. So my Phantom Deshoba attacked the turn it came into play, and then I played a Verdant Force
I
the
don't
next
know.
turn, and I still lost.
Hmm.
That is an impressive impressive loss.
That is. I don't know. I certainly don't. I don't want to play against
Oh,
Burn
no,
the
no,
final
no.
boss.
I'm not saying that I want to play against Burn. I'm
That's
saying
probably my least favorite matchup right now.
Goblins is so bad because
Yeah.
their sharpshooter is really good, and then like every like random exchange, they're just ahead. They're like any
Yeah.
like they have ringleader, you have nothing, right? And then
You've
like
got Squee.
all your big things are just like how many 1/1s that tap for mana can I put into play? And they can tutor for a card that says kill all of those one. And then after sideboarding, they
Yeah.
also have pyrokinesis. So even if they
But
don't
do
have
you
it,
Yeah, it's bad. It doesn't feel great.
So
Yeah, certainly doesn't feel great, but I think I'd rather play against goblins than burn from the elf side.
I mean, I think we can agree that neither one of these is picnic for the goblins
Right.
for the elves deck rather.
But at least Parfait is out of the meta, and they can rest easy there because that was uh Jens described it as the apex predator for
For
against the elves
elves.
deck. Yeah, Jens had he's like, this deck is basically unplayable right now because you always had a tough matchup against Burn, and Burn's like 10% of the meta. And now we have this thing that any monkey can beat elves with this deck. So he at least felt like he had a fighting shot against other people on the red deck that misunderstood what the game plan was. Like, again, just going face too early, not realizing that they were a mid-range deck there, mid-range control deck.
Well, I gotta tell you, I think that elves is a pretty good deck. Just horrible against any of the decks
Sure.
that
Yeah.
you and I would ever be willing to play.
Yeah. I mean, I think probably three of my most played decks have at least good, if not great, matchups against it. Because
Like,
it was always kind of a coin flip with Dreadnought too. Like, it has tools to beat Dreadnought, but Dreadnought has tools to beat it right back. Like,
I mean, like I just think so. The decks that I've played recently, like I played a bunch of like green white oath, green red oath. Those are both great decks against elves.
yeah,
Uh, goblins, burn, even the rock. Like like the rock is pretty good against elves because it has engineered plague and pernicious deed.
right.
You can slow them down with like whatever random vendetta.
Yeah, but
So
sometimes they just do elf things, and you go like, how did you deal that much damage that fast?
well,
I
because
guess you win, jerk.
I went first. You didn't have a answer to my first turn elf. You didn't have an answer to
I
my
played
second turn.
7 more elves, and then I won.
Then in the third turn, you took 40 damage.
Yeah,
You got what you
yeah,
deserved.
yeah. But the meta now, I I think it's great. I think losing Parfait made this
Oh my god.
wild and fun. Everything's adjusting to each other like all
It,
over again.
but there's Parfait was just replaced by other oath decks. So if you want to be like an oath
Yeah,
guy, there's still oath decks to play and they're good.
but it's not oppressive, and
Yeah,
the
I
things that
agree.
it was absolutely oppressive against couldn't exist in the meta, including the other oath decks. Because you don't want to be sitting there in an oath versus oath matchup and your opponent has like a whole engine that you don't.
Yeah, like oh, I have Lantax Guy's Blessing. You're just like I can make a big guy. I'm like interesting. I'm
Like,
gonna cast
I've got
7 swords to plowshares this game.
I've got treetop village. Yeah, that doesn't feel great.
So your strategy is to put more lands into play.
Yeah,
Great.
sweet. I guess I'll draw 3 a turn forever. Okay.
Yeah, I think that was obviously the best thing to happen to the format.
Yeah. Uh,
And also it unlocked the red deck. The red deck was felt very not good to me at LobsterCon last year.
yeah, it was really bad. I played it anyway.
Do you
The hilarious part is I probably won't play it this year, even though it's way better position now.
do you I was actually going to ask you, like, do you feel pressure to play the red deck in every tournament,
No, I talk myself into it a lot of times because we do these testing matches. Because I've got a bunch of things that I play on a fairly regular basis. I don't play the red deck super often right now. Uh, so I've got all these decks, and I've always got something that I think is like the meta beater for right now. And I'm like, this is what I'm going to play. And then we do these testing matches for whatever tournament, and everybody always wants me to play the burn side, so that they can test against their burn matchup. I just like crush. I'm like, man, this deck just feels great. I can't lose with this deck. And then I go and go X2 or whatever, and like just miss the cut, and like kick myself, lose on breakers from making the playoffs cutoff. So I don't know. I talk myself into it, and then I kick myself for being stupid again.
I feel like I'm gonna play the red deck. I mean, if LobsterCon were tomorrow, I'd play the red deck because it's my
If
favorite deck.
LobsterCon were tomorrow, I would play the red deck because I'm just having so much fun playing it right now.
Yeah,
Like,
and it's good.
yeah, yeah, it certainly feels good. I last on Monday, I beat the Rock. I beat Stifle, a blue black Stifle Knot. I beat and I beat the Mirror. Like again in another like crazy ridiculous match against John.
What do you think is the best deck right now?
Wow. It's probably Stifle Knot. In a vacuum, Stifle Knot.
I think Replenish. Replenish is doing real well across like a lot of tournaments.
I could Replenish isn't played enough to put up crazy numbers right now, but it's like the conversion rates just through the freaking roof. But I think it's because you have really good players playing it too. So
I mean, obviously, like
needs more testing. Needs more
Mengucci
data.
is
Yeah, it turns out he's pretty good at
he
Magic.
screws up the curve.
But I mean, you know, the people who are playing it in Europe right now are definitely no slouches. Like
like
everybody that's
Mengucci.
been, yeah. Well, I mean, like, you know, people that would be known only in the pre-modern circles, even like Anton's super high on Replenish. Danny top aided Euros with Replenish. Like there's really really good players playing that deck.
So Stifle Knot is an interesting question, an interesting response. I always had it as like my best deck, but uh it's just it hasn't been performing. And I
It's
feel
because
like
everybody's devoting half their sideboard to beating it.
but that's you know, we don't complain about that from the red side because the other half of their sideboards for us,
Yeah,
we get them anyway.
yeah.
There's like, oh, they put all their sideboard cards against Stifle Knot. That's why it's not doing well. No red player has ever complained about that. That's just table
So
stakes for us.
our our options for playing around the hate cards are better than theirs. They've got four. They're trying to win with four cards.
And one of them is
Like,
always bad. That's the thing. It's just like if you're in top deck mode, I drew a vision shark.
yeah. So you've got to have your whatever. They've got a 2-card combo that wins the game in 2 turns, which is great, right? But then, like one half of that, they've only got 4 copies of it. They don't have any way to go and get them back from their graveyard. So if you can deal with 1 or 2 of them, they're digging for their next one. Like that's not a great answer. That's why I have gotten to the point where I think it's closer than it has been. I mean, I'm still devoting 6 sideboard cards to it. And if I were to cut the anarchies, I'd probably end up devoting 7
Yeah,
to beating that one.
7 over here.
Yeah. Right.
I used to have 6 blasts. That's how crazy I was.
Yeah. I'm either really heavy on blasts, or for a little while I was anti-blast because I wanted all of uh the artifact hate. So I just went super heavy artifact hate because it was more versatile right then. So it's like, all right, they countered it. I cast another overload. They countered it. I cast another overload. I cast a Mog Salvage, whatever. I'll just play
Yeah,
like
Mog Salvage.
seven artifact destructions. But I think now I'm 6 cards of my sideboard devoted to beating one deck, and still it feels like a toss up.
Yeah, I guess that's a good definition of the best deck then. It is a
Yeah.
very good deck.
The thing that holds it down is the sideboard hate. There's obvious sideboard hate against it in every deck.
Every
You
deck.
have
Yeah.
something to interact with it.
A stack of naturalizes is the
Yeah.
that's about the best you're gonna get away with is somebody brought in a bunch of naturalizes against you, which is still pretty good.
Yep.
Right? Like every one of those naturalizes represents a 2-for-1.
Yep. So there's that. I think that would be in a vacuum. I think that's my best deck in pre-modern though right now.
That's a good
Because
answer.
sometimes they just slam it on turn 2, and you say, "Okay, go to game 2."
I mean, you're the innovator of the black blue stifle knot deck, right? So
No, that was around. I threw
not
my
when
own
I was
twist
paying
on it.
attention, buddy.
So that was the one that people were doing an awful lot in Europe because it had black sideboard cards in it, and that was key to the meta there.
Yeah, because they play so much elves. So you got to
Yeah,
play
you gotta stop the elves. I've got to have 4 engineered plagues in my sideboard, plus more spot removal, plus you know all the stifle knot goodies and the discard for the various combo decks. They were playing mesmeric fiends in those as well. Like just a whole bunch of disruption and really great sideboard cards. And then
well.
an alternate win counter too.
I think
Seems
Psychotalk
good.
is such a good alternate win con.
Yeah, it's really feels like another dreadnought. That deck feels like it needed another dreadnought.
Oh yeah, makes me very happy every time I look at that deck list. Except when Smith's had it against me, that made me very
Yeah,
unhappy. He perfect drew me
my
2 games out of 3.
my favorite thing is when people have the hate to go after the wrong side of things. Have all their they have all their artifact hate, and you're like, Psychotalk, go. And they're just like, shoot, these
It's
naturalizers aren't going to get there.
it's just gonna kill me. All
Yeah.
right. I think I'm gonna call it there, Aaron.
Okay.
Awesome
Well, we
podcast.
didn't we didn't actually wind up talking about the red deck.
We talked about it plenty.
All right. Sounds good.
I'm calling this the red deck with Aaron Dix.
All right.
All right.
Always good talking to you.
Awesome talking to you. See you soon.
Have a good one.
All right. Night.